Ready to
Let's
roll?
just go where it needs to go.
I like it. All right. Well, let's begin with thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting into the story, so I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's begin with this. I always start with this question. 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing everything about our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you work and live today?
It's a funny one. I was in a quite not a unique, but not a common situation. My wife and I, we were living nomadically at the time. I'd been abroad for most of my adult life by that point. I'd set up my business on this, my coaching business, Untamed, in 2017, and it was like Zoom native. So I was living in Australia at that point. So I was kind of on Zoom for 3 years before COVID happened, and was very comfortable having very deep personal conversations with people, through Zoom rather than face to face. So on that sense, the delivery of my work didn't change a huge amount. People started to become more au fait with that way of working, so it kind of broadened the remit on some cases. But then we also COVID did put paid to our travel plans. We'd done it for 3 years. We were ready to settle down anyway, but it just fast forwarded it a little bit. So then a large amount of the lockdowns, we got stuck in Bulgaria for 6 months. So we were in a wonderful mountain ski resort, and we just had like a lovely view, and it was nice and spacious. And then we came home to the UK and bought a house. So we were kind of in house renovation mode. So COVID didn't really change a huge amount that I'm consciously aware of. I think it slowed my business down in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, we were very fortunate.
Yeah, you were ready for it. So let's get into the good work that you're doing right now. I'm going to put you in front of 13-year-olds. It's career day. And one of the kids wants you to synthesize your day job into something that makes sense to their brains.
I help people become the people they want to be, not the person they feel like they should be.
So when did that happen for you? Did you have a sea change moment in your life?
Yeah, yeah. Although the podcastable version is always like a pithy moment where I just woke up and then one day there's all of the moons aligned and bang, the next day I was doing this. Of course, it's never that clean and linear, or not most of the time anyway. But yeah, I was running a business, an electrical engineering business in Perth, Western Australia, and it had been wonderful in terms of a learning curve, incredibly steep. I wasn't qualified for the role in any way, shape, or form. The guy who owned the company, who kind of left me in charge of it, didn't know what he was doing either. So I just the side of me that thrives in chaos and was my ego loved the responsibility I was given, and the trust this guy clearly placed to me, was loving it. But then that only took me so far, and then I just was like, this is not. I'm stressed. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the emotional support from this guy that I want. I'm sick of being told no by clients because we're in a really tough environment and I don't know what I'm doing. And I was just really stressed. So after a while, when I just drifted so far away from who it is I really am, I didn't really know anymore. And the energy, the playfulness, the childlike wonder had gone. And I was like, Jesus, something's got to change here. So I just went on this massive mission of figuring out who I wanted to be, who I wanted to serve, the life I wanted to lead. The context being that prior to living in Perth and being an adult for once, I was living in Whistler in Canada for 5 years, just ski instructing and partying and adventuring. So that was like a real reality should be a big contrast. So I kind of had that reference point of like, wow, this is how fun life could be. Where's that all gone? So that period took. I mean, it's ongoing, but that kind of shift probably started in 2016 and culminated in setting up Untamed in 2017.
So I want to go back to that 12, 13-year-old realm of life. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream gig?
You know what? I've thought about this question loads, and I don't have an exciting answer. And it was never something that was on. I wanted to drive the trucks around the airport that wheel the bags around.
Yeah.
Mm. I wanted to be I think I could call it even hairdresser, not barber. I don't know why. Because I'm not particularly interested in that, and I haven't been since I was about 8. I don't know. There was nothing that stood out. I've never been like. It was never pegged that I was going to be a business owner. It was never pegged that I was going to be helping people with their own personal stuff. Yeah, I was just going day to day. I had no grand vision whatsoever.
Yeah. So who was the inspirational force in your life? consistently that's allowed you to find your true self and to give you that moxie to help others find their true essence?
I don't know. I don't think I have one particular. You know, when you hear some people answer these questions, they're like, "Oh, it was my uncle, it was my godfather, it was like the person they always believed in me." My parents believed in me. Don't get me wrong, but there's not one shining figure that's like, "You've got this. You go on, make that work." I think I was very fortunate that both my parents allowed me to pursue a path that was I clearly just wanted to do. Not they weren't pushing me down a path. So after uni, uh, I went. I want to go and live abroad. I want to go and have some fun. And they were like, "Do it." And then 6 months in, my dad came out to visit me on a skiing holiday, and he said, "So what are the plans?" I said, "Oh, I think I'm going to go home and after my year and get a job back in England." And he looked around the bar and he was like, "Why? Why on earth would you want to do that?" I was like, because that's what I should do. He's like, "No, stay here as long as you possibly can."
Yeah.
So I was very grateful that my parents gave me that space to explore. And otherwise, my inspiration, guidance, mentoring has come from just lots of different people at certain times of my life, depending on what it is I needed, I think.
So if you can meet one person alive right now on the planet that epitomizes, the true essence of living and just all of the good things that you admire, is there anybody you would love to meet and talk to, have a lunch that might help you on your journey?
I'd love to meet Richard Branson.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of his. His creativity, his willingness to take big but calculated risks, his sheer belief in himself, or at least his ability to quieten the doubts. And he seems to do a lot of it with a playfulness that I really admire, and I've tried to bring into my world. He does it with a sense of fun. And then on a different note, someone who's just incredibly inspirational from what they've achieved is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Just to be at the top of three different and completely unrelated industries, like to go from being someone who couldn't speak English to being the best bodybuilder and the most known bodybuilder in the world, to then be going in films where, again, he couldn't speak the language properly and he had a weird accent, to be one of the most highest paid Hollywood actors in the world, to then go, you know what, I'm going to go into politics. I can't be the president because I'm not American. So what's the next best thing? I'll be in charge of the most powerful, richest state in the country. And then he just did it. It's just it's so impressive.
It is very impressive. I think there's a Netflix documentary, a two or three
Yeah,
part. Yeah,
yeah,
that's on him. It's amazing how he had that pinup of Mr. Atlas on his wall, and he did it. Like all of those little things that made him, become who he is. I mean, I think sometimes we have this idea that people just fall out of the sky and they are who they are. I mean, he grew up in a family that was everything was stacked against him. No one was doing anything along those lines, and he just decided he wanted another path.
yeah.
It's,
He,
it's
he had
amazing.
to he had to fight gravity
Uh-huh.
to get out of the country, the environment, the bubble, the belief systems that he was around. He did and it was sheer. He knew what he wanted and he pursued it
Yeah.
doggedly, probably to the detriment of other people. I'm sure he's not. He's certainly no angel. I think his
Yeah.
his moral compass might be a bit off on some occasions, but
Yeah.
in terms of what he's achieved,
So I got a question. When I was growing up, I went through my hoodlum stage, and I remember in the eighth grade there was a gym coach. His name was Dave Rabori, and he was in Vietnam, and he was a tough guy. And he stopped me one day, and he was like, "Domino, what do you what why are you running around with all these people that aren't doing you any good? What are you doing with your life?" He just stopped me, and he saw me for who I was. So my question, the reason why I say that is that we always have these seminal people early on in our lives that see through all of the layers of what we're supposed to be. Who was that? Who was the first one that saw you for who you are?
the first person that comes to my mind is the coach that I still work with, an Irish guy called Philip McKernan. And I didn't start working with him properly. I think I had my first coaching call with him in 2018. We were nomadic. I remember the flat I was in. We were house sitting or cat sitting, whatever you want to call it, overlooking the ocean in Las Palmas, Gran Canaria, in the Canary Islands. And I had my first coaching call with him. And I had been drawn to his work. Other people had recommended him. I'd attended webinars of his, whatever. But I didn't realize it until later on that there was so much likeness in who he was and his energy. He called himself an enlightened hooligan. I was never that extreme, but there was certainly elements of me that kind of rebelled and was felt like I had to be tampered over the years, or tempered, I should say. So I've worked with him for enough years now to know that he sees me in a way nobody else sees me. He As a result, he can empower me in the way that nobody else can empower me, and he sees through. And he wouldn't like me using this language, but he sees through my bullshit. He would think that's too negatively framing it. But he'd see through my stories. I'm trying to be that, and he's just like Jim, I can just see you at the top of a mountain wearing hiking shorts and some boots, just having the best time. And it's just that he just gives me a permission to be more playful, to stop trying so hard, and nobody else, not even my family, because of the amount of work I've done with him and the similarities we have, nobody else can sees me in that sense, with that level of clarity. I don't believe.
So when you decided that you were going to coach and you were going to help people find their true essence, what was the first client? What was the epiphany, the revelation that you had where you knew you made the right choice? Was it a success story with the client? Was it something that you woke up one day and was like, all right, all of this makes sense?
I can tell you that one of the most seminal moments of my was my first paid client. I think I knew it was by that point it was a when not if. I'd done so much work consciously and unconsciously to create this to make this to create the vision and then for that vision to come true. So, but I suppose so. Prior to my first paying client, it was like I'm not going back. This is it. It's just a case of how long this is going to take and what it exactly looks like. But that moment where my first paid client, I was sat we were in our first country as nomads. We were in Kyoto in Japan. I was in this really cool hostel, and I was sat there and I was looking around. And I was like, "There's a lake or mountains, both actually near me." I had this coffee and I was waiting for the Zoom call to start with a paying client. I was like, this is ace. This is like was a year and a half, 2 years in the making by that point. 2 years ago, that vision did feel a world away. Different country, different lifestyle, very different business, different set of skills, different set of gifts being utilized, different people, different clients, so much new. But so that moment I will always remember. And I coached his dad. He was on a retreat. His dad, he lives in Tennessee, a retired army colonel. I coach him now, and he was on a retreat of mine last week in England.
Right on.
So he flew from Tennessee to this retreat, and I told him that story again because I've told him before. He's like, that was my first ever paying client, and you facilitated that, and that was a life changing moment.
That's amazing. So what is the energy for you to do this work at a high level? I mean, you're helping people get to their ideal place in life, which I'm not saying there's a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of moving parts that go into what you're doing. And then you have your soul, your family, everything that's going on with you. What is that energy collectively for you to do this at a high level every day?
If I'm interpreting the question correctly, the work I do, certainly the delivery of it, because running a business, as you'll know, the delivery is often, a fraction of it. It's the maintenance and the cultivation of clients, etc. But the delivery of it itself, the work, capital W, inspires me. It energizes me. It doesn't drain me.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse or whether it's positive or negative. But when I'm working with people and they are bringing enormous weight to the conversation and pain, perhaps trauma or like heaviness in terms of what they need from this experience. I don't I don't take that on myself. I can become really connected emotionally with that person. That's how I need to be to help them. But I don't carry that with me. I don't need to shake it off at any point. Do you know what I mean? I never take ownership of it, which I think is really bad. I know some people who love the idea of coaching, but they go to bed worrying about how their client is feeling. I don't I don't have that. Um, the energy in my life right now is from a macro perspective. I have two small children, so that's pretty draining.
Yeah.
Pretty. pretty tiring part of my life, which I'm aware of, and the business is just one small part of that, or big part, I suppose. But
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into that 18-year-old version of you, ready to go out and change the world, and you walk in at your age right now and you're in a room and there's a film projector and you click play and a 60-second highlight reel of your life comes up, is that young version of you going to believe your life turned out this way?
no, no, for a number of reasons. I think partly he wouldn't have. If you'd asked my 18-year-old how's your life going to turn out, he would have had no clue, and he wouldn't have tried to claim he would have known. Like I was never sort of pressured by that sense of needing to know, and I didn't have any visions. I had no idea. I left uni and I was like, let's just go to Canada for 5 years or 1 year, which turned into five. But no, the in terms of the number of adventures, the number of the amount of fun, the amount of amazing people I've met, the amount of people I've helped. Um, and I don't say that from a place of arrogance. I hope it doesn't come across that way. But the work I do is so unbelievably inspiring for me, so fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And the fact I get to do it in this, overlooking this lovely field, and having done it around the world with these wonderful clients from around the world, with a wife who, I tell you what, they wouldn't be. This might be an interesting part of the story that I've just remembered or just connected with. The part that 18-year-old wouldn't have believed is who I would be alongside. So I'm married to a woman called Kim. Kim and I have been friends since we were 10.
Wow.
And I always had the hots for her at school, but I never tried because I knew I would fail. And we stayed friends. We got really close in friends when we were about 18. So she came as my date in inverted commas to our prom as mates because the girl I was seeing couldn't make it. Um, so the thought of, hey, 18-year-old Jim, how about the thought of like from the age of,
Yeah.
I don't know, 28 to 40, well, and beyond, hopefully, you'll be doing this alongside Kim.
Yeah.
He would have gone, mm. He would be very excited by that proposition.
That's wonderful, man. So in that 60-second highlight reel, what are you the happiest about, the proudest of?
being being bold and brave in pursuing what it is that lights me up,
Yeah.
and knowing that doing so is the most impactful and selfless thing you can do for others. Um, had I let fear get in the way, I wouldn't have gone to Canada and had 5 years of fun. I wouldn't have become a truck driver out of nothing. I wouldn't have then been. I wouldn't have said yes to running a company which I had no business running, and I wouldn't have backed myself to create this business that I am in. And a lot of that is just because I just felt called to do it. And every time I've got in my head about what life should look like and the decisions I need to make, it's taken me further away. So I think having that courage to say no, this is what I want to do, um, would probably be the proudest thing.
So, having that adventurous nomadic spirit in you, what is one of the most magically unexpected places you visited on the planet that you absolutely loved? And you didn't realize you would, but you just were enchanted.
Oh, I can be so specific. Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, Playa del Carmen. We were there as a part of our nomadic journey. We were there for 3 months from February 2017 till May, roughly, and we connected with a friend of ours out there who helped teach us Spanish. He helped me spearfish and he helped me free dive, and he took us to the cenotes. And the cenotes are, I don't know if you're familiar, they're quite unique in the world. They're freshwater pools in the middle of the rainforest where the visibility is like 50 meters or something incredible.
Wow.
And they're all, it's part of where the sea level used to be and erosion of the limestone, all this stuff. But without boring you, they're all, a lot of these sort of, they're like sinkholes that are filled up, and they're connected via these tunnels and caves. So you can, if you do some good deep breathing and meditation, you can your mask and snorkel and your flippers, you sink down and you can go to the where it's darker and you can see a glimmer of light. You go back up, you get your breath, you go down and you swim towards that glimmer of light, and you just trust that you're going to be able to come up the other side without having to come up. And we did this. We came up on the other side, and we were in a completely different sinkhole. It was circular with an island in the middle, with a tree in the middle of the island, like a tiny island, like 2 meters wide, with a bird on the top. And we were the only ones there. And we'd swum there underground. Like,
That's
this is
cool. That you just painted a very vivid, wonderful picture. That is, but that takes a lot of confidence and courage to trust your lung capacity and the fact that something's not going to come up along the way, because you don't know
yeah,
what's under there. But that's wonderful, man. That's pure adult adventure right there.
yeah, it was. And it was just me allowing Felipe to lead. Like, you're in charge. I
Yeah.
trust you. Let's
Uh-huh.
just go and let's be playful with this. And it was just, and the growth from it, like learning to hold your breath for a couple of minutes while you're swimming in
Oh
the
yeah.
in the short time we were there. It was like we swam with sharks in the sea. We did so much cool stuff, and I wouldn't have explored that. I wasn't drawn to Mexico before that. It was
Yeah.
because he was there, and we could learn Spanish. But yeah, just such an incredible experience.
That's beautiful, man. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Somebody who is authentic, energetic, um, sincere, and with sincerity it can be serious, and it can, like with my work, I can't always be playful. There has to be a depth and a sincerity there. I'd like to think I I have the two ends of the spectrum that I like to think I can connect with quite readily are the childlike playfulness and the deep sincere, and being able to hold those two is something I believe I can do, and I believe it contributes to my ability to do what I do, and I think it attracts certain type of person. Um, I'm very principled. There's a lot of time I've sacrificed my own gain to stick to a principle that I would have felt hypocritical or wrong for not doing.
So I'm going to tap into that adventurous spirit one more time. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history, what would you love to have witnessed happen with your own eyes?
There's probably a really clever cultural answer here, but I want to go back to Wembley, 1985, I think, to watch Queen perform Live Aid.
Yes.
Their like 20-minute set. They play the whole set in the film Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, oh my God, there's just a sense of connection, the sense of energy, the sense of
Man.
just letting yourself go. I love all the song. Radio Gaga is one of my favorite songs. He was an incredible showman. So that would be so cool.
That day that happened was my wedding anniversary. It's July 13th. And I didn't realize it until later. I was like, wait, that's July 13th. But I just actually interviewed a cat in the UK that looks like Freddie, and they're coming to Kansas City on a 6-week tour, and they're going to present all of the phases of Queen. And it's supposed to be an unbelievable show. Could you imagine? I mean, even though because I've seen the Beatles, there was a show that came to town where they did all of
Wow.
that. And those guys look like it. It's like to see that presented live. I know it's not them, but there's still a pageantry to all of that. It's amazing.
Well, our brains are really good at convincing us and not knowing the difference between reality and imagination.
That's right.
So if you want that to be the real Queen and Freddie Mercury in front of you, you're going to be there
Amen.
within one song.
That's it. You totally are. So if anybody wants to reach out, they have questions, they want to hire you, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
My website is becomeuntamed.com. But if anyone's at a crossroads in life, if they're a driven business owner, athlete, sports person, or military veteran, someone who's like highly driven, but they're now doubting who it is they are, what path they want to pursue, they're lacking confidence, maybe they're burning out, and they're at a crossroads of some kind. They're the people I love to help, and I run a monthly Q&A called Conversations at the Crossroads, and the next one is next Wednesday. I believe that's the 24th of June, I think, or it could be the 23rd. But it's Wednesday and it's 1:30 p.m. UK time. So if you go on my website, Become Untamed, look at the menu item Conversations at the Crossroads and register to that. And just, you don't have to engage, although that helps, but just listen and learn and hopefully get some insights as to what next path might look like.
I love it. I will put links in the show notes. Jim, this has been wonderful. Great to meet you, man. Thank you so much for your story, for your time. It's been great.
Been a pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
Yes, you bet.